Hello, welcome to another episode of Science Talks, a conversation hosted by the University of Arizona's Bio5 Institute. My name is Amy Barber. Today we are joined by Ash Black, the Director of AI and Industry at the Institute for Computation and Data-Enabled Insight. The Institute provides training, education, collaboration, software licenses, and data to our researchers here at Bio5 and at the University of Arizona. Ash works as a creative technologist and educator with an impressive record of innovation from the early internet to advanced technology, including AI and XR. As a specialist in student engagement, he uses experiential learning and pushes to use practical learning methods. He currently coordinates AI outreach and works to build internships, jobs, and economic opportunities across Arizona. Ash, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me in.
Oh, absolutely. It's our pleasure. So we like to start every podcast off the same way with a few fun rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So long road trip or short plane ride?
Definitely long road trip.
Okay. Are you an early riser or a night owl?
I am a night owl.
Okay. So what was it that brought you to the University of Arizona?
I originally came here for undergraduate study.
Oh, okay.
So I graduated from Howry, School of Anthropology. And then I came back to work when I reached that point of life.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So you got your degree in anthropology?
Yeah, in anthropology, yeah.
Okay. And so what was it that made you decide to take that path at that time?
Yeah, that's interesting. So my background, the thing is that I'm primarily a technologist. So I kind of got my break back in the mid-90s and have been working in like web development and database development since that .com boom. And what happened for me is that I can remember it was about 2004. I remember having like a long weekend, like a Memorial Day weekend type thing. And I thought to myself, well, like wow, the internet is capable of delivering anything. Because this is about 2004, and I realized like, wow, this is here to stay for sure. And it's like, it can do anything. You can make wealth, it could make fame, whatever, like anything you want from it. And so I remember asking myself, like, well, what do you really want from it? And what I figured out was that I mostly wanted to know stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So and then I asked myself what I want to know. And that's when I just realized that I had always had like a really long time, all my life had a passion for understanding the human past.
Okay.
So I decided to study that academically because I kind of had the technology thing in the bag at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
So just what is it about the human past that intrigues you, or at the time intrigued you?
That's that's a fascinating question. I think it starts with like we all kind of want to know what the origin story is.
Yeah.
Like why did all this happen? Like I feel like if you're not asking yourself at some point in your life, like, what is going on? What I mean by that is like reality is happening, like your life is unfolding in front of you. You have to ask at some point, like, how did it start? So I feel like that question is kind of like fundamental. And to me, it's also philosophical and it could be a spiritual question, but it has like also very tangible roots in terms of like, if you find something in the ground, it's like somebody put it there 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And so that tells you something forensically about how we got here. So I just found that question to be really fascinating. I did later figure out that I'm actually just fascinated with processes of change.
Oh.
So it's not just the past; it's also like extrapolating into the future and things like that. But if I had a superpower, or if I was lucky, I would be able to like sit on a mountain and watch stuff evolve over millions of years.
Oh my gosh.
That would be the thing I'd like to do.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I never even thought about doing something like that, but now that you mention it, like I can picture that in my mind and how awesome that would be. Like, man. Well, thank you for sharing.
Sure, yeah.
And so basically, your center is located within Bio5.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much what brought you to Bio5. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Institute for Computation and Data-Enabled Insight. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so have you had an opportunity to get to meet a lot of the Bio5 folks, or?
I would like to know. I would like to meet more Bio5 folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got quite a few of us around here. How long have you been with the center?
I've just been with the center since I think it was pretty much December of last year.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I was at the Eller College before that,
Okay.
and then sometime before that I was with the global office, Global.
Okay. So you still got lots of time to meet
Yeah.
people. And hopefully this podcast, people will get to know you and reach out as well. And so do you connect your degrees you've earned with your profession at all?
So yeah, it doesn't connect directly in terms of like the kinds of work that we take on in the projects, but the social sciences background and particularly the study of anthropology and human nature and culture has profoundly opened up the way that I look at technology. Like it's a daily thing. So like I tend to take a very long view of technology. So like working in AI is fascinating because it started with stone tools. Right, there's a connectivity to that, right? And actually, if you could explore that for a second, it's a weird thing about human nature, but we have like this instinctive built-in desire to like not work. So the first humans are chipping rocks together, and you can almost like imagine that they're sitting there thinking, you know, it'd be awesome if I had like a little robot rock chipper guy that could come out and do this for me. You know what I mean? Right. Like or if you're like a farmer, it's, you know, like a rice farmer, it's like a scarecrow, right? So like we have like a natural desire to kind of offload our work, which is really weird because now it's kind of hit sort of like the fever pitch with AI. Yeah. Because now we have the potential to automate virtually a very wide range of human behaviors. Yeah. So I think about that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. We mentioned XR earlier in the intro. What does that mean?
It stands for extended reality. Oh. And what it is it's just an acronym that the technology culture is hoping will encapsulate the other acronyms. Okay. Because we've had VR and AR and we have things called mixed reality. We have a lot of these different kinds of technologies. And what they all fundamentally are is a spatialized type of computing. Like where to expound on that for a second, the technology that we know, the internet, is based on sort of like a two-dimensional, like book-oriented view of the world. Like you go to a website as if it was like a location in like a library or something like that. Screens, we're really comfortable with screens. But the XR technology is about spatial or immersive computing that we actually kind of either wear or we find it around ourselves in our physical environment. Okay. So it's a different paradigm. So instead of like a book, it's more like a world or a place. But we call it XR right now. It'll probably continue to evolve, unfortunately. But it's another acronym. Okay.
And how are AI and XR connected, if at all?
They are connected. They're connected in some pretty interesting ways. First of all, they're not directly related as technologies. So it's easy for a technologist to say, well, XR, I work over here, AI people are over here. They're two different worlds. But the reality is that XR and AI are happening at the same time. And they're both very, very, I would say, game-changing or arresting technologies. So we know about artificial intelligence and that it's like permeating most domains. The evolution of this new metaverse, VR, the XR that we're talking about is happening rapidly as well. And I think that the intersection is that, well, basically back to the anthropology angle, I personally believe that people are basically fatigued with all of this, right? And so what we see is we see that intelligence is everywhere. We see that holograms are now reality and there's all these weird bending of rules. And I feel that on a cultural level, the intersection is imminent, that people will just kind of throw up their hands and say, all right, I get it. We're living in a new reality, and then just let that go. And so there's a tie-in there on the back end, if you see what I mean, which is that they enable one another. The other tie-in, if that's not too, I hope that's not too convoluted, but the other tie-in is that AI makes XR a lot easier to develop and to deploy. So they're kind of like happening at the same time. And then there's one more, which is really interesting, which is that AI can be trained in spatial environments, which is very strange. But if I can give an example of what that means. So like, imagine this tabletop that we're sitting at here, and you have, you can model it in a 3D program like Unreal Engine 5. You can model it very, very well so that we know exactly what happens when something falls off the edge. It's very realistic. Well, it turns out what you can do is you can put AI models into virtual reality, and they can learn how to navigate the table 10,000 times. They don't have, the robot doesn't have to actually step around the chair or or get up on the table. It can do it in in XR.
Huh. Okay.
And then once it translates to the real world, it has mastered that.
Wow.
So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we could build a highly accurate model, a digital twin of your building here, and a robot could be trained to go through every little tiny bit. And then when you deploy the robot, it will be really sharp like that. Does that make sense?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's another example of an intersection.
Wow. Wow.
It's weird.
Yes. Some futuristic stuff, but it's happening right now.
Yeah, totally.
Now is the future. So do you find yourself to be interested mainly in the creative aspects of technology or the helpful aspects that can alleviate work from humans?
Well, I mentioned before about the innate desire to not work, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a double-edged sword, or it's problematic. It's like that's the first thought is like, what could we automate away? And my next thought is, yeah, but are you sure you don't like doing that?
Yeah.
Right? So like, I'm not sure about the automation. So on a personal level, I'm all about the creative potential. That's what motivates me. Mm-hmm. There's tons of opportunity in the automation and in the getting it to do human work. That's where there's so much like economic incentive. Okay. But personally, I find the creative potential of AI to be much less of a double-edged sword.
That makes sense.
It's like it's a lot more fun.
Yeah. So what was it that inspired you to begin teaching?
So I was working in web development in the 1990s, and I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I had some contracts with the Santa Fe public school system. And I was teaching like HTML website development back then. And that was the first time that what happened is that there was a student in that class who, I think that he didn't walk up to me, he walked up to the instructor who had started the class, and he said something to the effect of like, this just saved my life. I think he meant saved, because these were at-risk youth, so they didn't have like a pole, right? And something about web development totally lit him up. Mm-hmm. That was the first time that I'd ever heard that in relation to my work. You know what I mean? Like I'd heard like, oh, good job, or like, wow, you really set up that printer well, or whatever. But the first time that I heard somebody who said that changed my life, and that was the beginning of it. And then I had a really great experience in the late 1990s and early 2000s. I had a large, successful technology training school in Indonesia. Mm. So I was hired in as the director technologically, but I ended up creating the classes and teaching, and that's when I realized that I could teach. Not in a formal classroom sense, but that's when I learned that, one-on-one interaction and mentoring opened my mind to that. Yeah. So, and then I guess the way, if you're asking about how I got started at the university, 15 years later, when I came to the university, again, I was hired in as an IT professional, as databases and networks and stuff. But I had that teaching experience in the back of my mind, mm-hmm. and I saw the student body, and I was like, you know what? We need to let them do the work instead of us trying to do the work. And so that's when I started on this experiential learning path, which is the main work that I do.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So when did you decide you wanted to implement technology so heavily into your teaching methods?
Yeah, like from the moment of birth.
Yeah. What specific ways do you use AI and XR for teaching?
Well, the most important thing is that I always have the students drive it. So the first thing that you're doing with that technology is learning how to prompt, learning how to train models, learning how to build completion requests, which is what you do when you get a chatbot built, basically. Or learning how to get an object rendered in 3D and then put it into a headset. So it's always deeply experiential, throw them into the deep end. Okay.
Do you use both together, or mm-hmm. does each technology have its own specific use?
AI is broadly applicable to almost all problems, and XR is a little bit more of a niche. But yeah, they'll use them together as much as possible. Okay.
Do you find yourself using AI or XR technology outside of the teaching setting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
What do you do at the Institute for Computation and Data-Enabled Insight?
So I direct the artificial intelligence and industry. And so for that, I'm talking to our public and private sector partners across Arizona, mostly about workforce development. So it's either bringing them into the university to sponsor projects like hackathons or the AI Core program. The main work that I'm doing right now is the AI Core program, which is if I can explain it briefly.
Yeah.
So it runs year round. The staff is about 16 developers right now, and we develop artificial intelligence-based solutions for university researchers or industry partners who contribute to the program. It's extremely contemporary. It's all technologies that are evolving out of industry, like right now. So it's all we're training, creating vector embeddings and creating RAG databases in Amazon Bedrock. We fired up Amazon Bedrock. The developer, his name is Naman, he comes back to me, Ash, this feature doesn't actually work yet. And then so we get a support contract to find out that that's because Amazon's going to deploy it. But it's like you can click on it, but it's not there yet. I think I'm being a bit obtuse, but my point is that it's we try to stay as close to the cutting edge as possible. Yeah. So we call it like the Wild West. It's like if it doesn't work, that's good because that means that you're first to get to it.
Yeah.
And so I did lose the track there, but the point of the AI Core program is that it's developing AI-based solutions for researchers and for partners. The really neat thing about it is that it swells to a much larger size in the summer. So we're on Monday, June 3rd, we're bringing on an additional 48 students in a partnership with student engagement and career development. Mm-hmm. So we have like a summer boot camp experience. Okay. And we'll be building applications with City of Tucson, Pima County Visitor Center. We have a number of researchers here in health innovation, and Eller College has a project. And so we're just going to be very busy building these projects out as rapidly as we can.
All summer long.
Yeah, it's fun. It's completely experiential, and it's, as far as anybody on the program is concerned, they just got hired with some kind of cool startup that's hidden in the university.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's how we run it. Yeah. It's a program. It's a program from my CDI, but it operates like a business, like a startup.
Well, that's really awesome experience and exposure for students. Yeah, for sure. What is your favorite part of the work that you do?
The absolute favorite, best part is throwing one of the students into an impromptu live demo in front of a bunch of people. Because they pull it off every time. Yeah. And they're so talented, and something that's interesting about working in education is that this might be a little bit weird, but it's what I think is really cool. Yeah. Is that particularly when you're working with like undergrad populations, you're usually working with people who are in their early 20s or so. There's like an incredible growth and maturation that happens like right before your eyes. That doesn't happen so much as we get older, and we all have, as we get older, we know that our colleagues get fixed and we all get set in our ways, but like the talent that can emerge in an instant like that, and you can see a person transform from an eager, dedicated young person seeking career to somebody who suddenly has some command they have some confidence. Yeah. And it just happens right before your eyes. And it's probably the coolest thing that happens. Technology is pretty neat too, right, and getting to see these things happen. But the most fascinating part is that experience. And it's really pretty reliable. It happens a lot.
I was going to say, I can actually relate with that because here we have a lot of student employees. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they'll start as freshmen. Chris here is a freshman. And they'll stay with us throughout their entire, undergraduate career. And the same thing, we will notice over time that confidence just building, the business awareness just growing, and it's pretty cool to watch.
It is cool. Mm-hmm. If I can add something to that, because it's something I feel passionate about, is that there really is a reason to hope culturally for all of us, because we see that there's this incredible transformation of our society, mostly driven by technology, to be honest. Like the technology layer is what's flipping everything forward into some kind of new paradigm. But I've been working really closely with students since 2015, and every year the incoming freshman population has this almost exponential exponentially more talent technologically.
Okay. Yes.
There's something happening. There's something happening at an evolutionary level where young people understand the technology in a way that's like outclassing even the people who are just a few more years older than them.
It's almost like a language that they learn when they're little, and instead of having to learn it later in life.
Right. It's like an innate known thing, and it gives me hope because even though the technology keeps coming at us in this big rush, the young people are more than capable of absorbing it.
Yeah.
And that should give us all hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And your people like you and your institute are cultivating that and helping to shepherd that. So, I mean, we should all look forward to our future with these kids.
Yeah, totally.
Get out there and run the world.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your website and what do you post and what inspires it?
Do you mean my personal website? That's just like an artistic outlet.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very artistic. I have to say, I did look at it. It's pretty
thanks.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's just, it's an outlet for my music and for my thoughts on AI and spirituality and humor, I guess. And just, it's just it's an idea bank, and I don't know why I make it.
You like it? It's an outlet.
Just like driven to do it.
That's cool.
Thank you. Appreciate
it. So do you have a mentor that has impacted your life in any fashion?
Could I go with like heroes instead of mentors?
Of course, yes.
Like the people who have had the most impact on my life.
Yeah.
Let me think. So one that's somebody who's inspired me a lot, and that is Alan Watts. Familiar with Alan Watts, who's a philosopher who had he's written a lot of books on the nature of being. He's passed away in the 70s. But I really like his writings, but I also love that the way his life turned out is that he just ended up like going on radio on Berkeley in the 60s and talking and getting a following of people. So I'm like, all right, I feel like I can relate to Alan Watts. But I like him. It's a little bit weird, not necessarily weird, but maybe unexpected. But I'm a musician, so I've spent a fair amount of time in my life studying the musician Malcolm Young from AC/DC. So if anybody out there who understands AC/DC will understand about what I'm about to say. But something I took from that, understanding that approach to guitar, is the beauty of simplicity and like childlike elegance, right? Okay. So like that's something that inspires me. It's like just stick to what you're doing, let rock happen, get out of the way, and that translates outside of music too. Okay. Like we all have that, right? Yeah. We all have a thing that's trying to flow through you, and if you just kind of like let it rock, let it do its thing, it kind of works its own way.
Don't overthink
so I don't know if don't overthink it. So I don't know if that's too abstract or not, but that's something that comes back for me.
Yeah.
Is to just like kind of get out of the way, try to get out of the way.
I think that's good advice. I don't know, you're not really giving advice at the moment, but I take it as advice because I do tend to overthink things, and so I have to remember that.
Yeah, I relate. I overthink things myself in my own way, like way too much. But I feel like when it comes to working with the crew and working with colleagues and technology, that there's something bigger at work, and it's like I don't have to do all the heavy lifting. There's a plan that's happening. It's especially feel that being part of the university.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a pivotal moment in your career that sort of helped to change or did change the trajectory in some way?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I would say the one unexpected break that I got that had a big impact on me was back in 2004. I was recruited to work with recruited by an economist. He was an economist, and he had a business, and he had what turned out to be a big data project. This is before we called it big data. That he had like a big mathematical modeling thing, and he saw something in me well, he was like, "You're talented, I'll take you." And he paid me. I'm like, "This is great. I got a job," you know. But I ended up working in databases really, really extensively from 2004 to like 2009. And he was very patient. He was also a very intelligent person. It's, you know, sometimes you meet somebody and you're like, "That's weird. That guy's got like a really sharp mind." You know, like people who can really insight.
Yeah.
So he was an interesting person to work with because he could really think mathematically. But he employed me for a long period of time as I became able to like really do a lot of things with databases and with SQL. So that's kind of like a fortuitous one that otherwise wouldn't have gone that route.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But it did change my way of thinking about the world for sure, because databases are structured the way that machines like to think. That's what they are.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I have just sort of it's not even off topic, but a quick, you mentioned SQL.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion of them calling it SQL now instead of SQL? I run into students all the time that call it SQL, and I know it as SQL.
Yeah, I've actually always called it SQL.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay. See,
but I've learned to just go back.
I guess
and forth
it's the same difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was just like off the.
Yeah.
Just curious. So, can you tell us what is your why? What is your just why do you get up in the morning and do what you do? Keeps you going.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. First of all, remember I mentioned about how back in 2004 I decided to get the degrees in anthropology. My particular motivation is that I want to know how things work. Okay. I want to know what I'm a science philosophy type person, which I think is why I'm happy in a university context, because I'm surrounded by people who also generally have that drive. Yeah. But that's a great question, because it can be more pointed as to like right now, like what's your why right now? Like why do you get up this morning to go to work? And I'm going to go for it for a second because it's just what's happening and everybody needs to know this. Yeah. The artificial intelligence phenomenon is like the culmination of humans' fascination with tool use and technology, as far as I can tell. We've reached a point where we can now have tools that build themselves. It's been a long journey. We called it history, but but it's now reached a point where it's post-historical. And I just grapple with this routinely. It's just too awesome that we're present for this. I feel like there is a spiritual or an intelligent nature to this. I just doesn't feel right to say, oh, you accidentally happen to be alive at the moment that intelligence decouples from biology in the lifespan of the universe. Yeah. I'm like, no, that's pretty profound. Yeah. Like we're alive for something wild. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that it's a generational challenge. It's a species level challenge. I believe in young people a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I get up every day. It's not difficult to come into this university setting where there's a lot of young minds that are ready to take charge and tackle that and grapple with it. I can't think of anything more important, at least from my point of view, like than that there's this small army or this crew of young people who are completely willing to embrace this technology and figure out how to tame it and turn it into something that's like pro-human. Mm-hmm. So that animates me.
Okay. Wow. Thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah. I want to go back to something you said a minute ago. You're a musician.
Yeah.
So what, you play guitar or, okay. Do you have a band that
No, not anymore, no.
Not anymore,
no,
okay. But you used to.
Yeah, I've spent time in and out of bands for a while.
So that's kind of fun. That's a creative.
I love music. Do you play?
Yeah. I do not. I have always wished that I could. Mm-hmm. But nope, I didn't get any of the talent. My brother got all that talent in the family. So I never have, but that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
That concludes all the questions that I had. And I really enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you and getting to understand what goes on at the Institute. And thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. So thanks much.
Thanks to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Science Talks. Continue the conversation with us next time as we learn more about the amazing science happening at the University of Arizona's Bio 5 Institute.